All right, mates, gather round, grab a cuppa, and let's have a chinwag about this right royal mess we call the UK housing crisis. Picture this, a lovely family, the Joneses, are looking to move up the property ladder. Dad's got his trusty pipe and slippers, Mum's got her floral apron, and little Emma's busy practicing her curtsy for the Queen. They've got their eyes on a charming little semi-detached in a nice neighbourhood. Sounds simple, right? Well, not so fast, my friends. You see, finding a decent gaff these days is about as easy as teaching a corgi to sing opera. The prices are soaring higher than a pigeon at a bakery, and don't even get me started on the competition. It's like trying to win a staring contest with a hawk. Our poor Joneses are stuck in a bidding war with a cast of characters straight out of a Monty Python sketch, a Russian oligarch with more money than sense, a Premier League footballer and his wag, and a trust fund baby who thinks rent is something you pay for a tuxedo. It's enough to make you want to pack it all in and move to a yurt in the Outer Hebrides. Now, you might be wondering, how did we get into this right bobby of a situation? Well, pull up a pew and I'll give you a bit of a history lesson. Back in the good old days, you know, when a pint of milk cost tuppence and you could buy a house with a week's wages, council housing was all the rage. The government built loads of affordable homes for working families and everyone was as happy as a clam at high tide. But then came the 1980s, with big hair, shoulder pads, and a certain Mrs. Thatcher at the helm. She had this bright idea called Right to Buy, which basically meant council tenants could buy their homes at a discount. Sounds great on paper, right? Well, not so fast, my friend. While it did help some families get on the property ladder, it also meant that the stock of affordable council houses started to dwindle faster than a plate of biscuits at a vicar's tea party. And guess what? The government didn't build enough new council houses to replace the ones being sold off. So here we are, stuck in a pickle with a shortage of affordable housing and more people than ever needing a roof over their heads. Now, I'm not saying Right to Buy was all bad. After all, who doesn't love a good discount, eh? And for some families, it was a chance to finally own a piece of the pie, a little slice of the British dream. They could finally paint their front doors whatever colour they liked, within reason, of course, wouldn't want to upset the neighbours, and plant geraniums to their heart's content. But like a dodgy kebab after a night on the lash, Right to Buy left a rather nasty aftertaste. You see, the problem was, once these council houses were sold off, many of them didn't stay as family homes for long. Oh no, they were snapped up by investors quicker than you could say Bob's your uncle. These savvy sorts saw a golden opportunity to make a few quid. They turned these once humble abodes into rental properties, charging top dollar to those who couldn't afford to buy. And as the supply of council housing dwindled, the demand for these private rentals went through the roof, driving up prices faster than a runaway corgi at Crufts. It was like a game of musical chairs, but with houses instead of chairs and a whole lot more people vying for a seat. Meanwhile, back in the real world, ordinary families were left scratching their heads, wondering how on earth they were supposed to compete in this bonkers property market. The dream of owning a home was starting to feel about as realistic as finding a unicorn in your back garden. The government, bless their cotton socks, tried to encourage more house building, but it was like trying to fill a bathtub with a teaspoon. Developers, with their eyes on the prize, and by prize I mean profit, were more interested in building luxury flats for foreign investors than affordable homes for ordinary Brits. It's enough to make you want to scream into a pillow, isn't it? But don't despair just yet, my friends, because in the next part of our little story we'll delve deeper into this housing quagmire and explore how uncontrolled immigration has added fuel to the fire. Stay tuned. Now, before you get your knickers in a twist, let's be clear, immigration isn't the sole culprit in our housing saga. It's more like that extra hot chili you add to your curry. It adds a bit of spice, but it can also leave you sweating and reaching for a glass of milk. You see, when it comes to immigration and housing, it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation. On the one hand, you've got folks who say immigrants are putting a strain on our already stretched housing market. More people means more demand, which, as we've already established, pushes up prices faster than a Jack Russell chasing a squirrel. And it's true, some areas have seen a significant increase in population due to immigration, putting pressure on local services and, you guessed it, housing. But hold your horses, because it's not as simple as that. Immigrants, you see, also contribute to our economy and society in countless ways. They fill jobs, pay taxes and start businesses. And guess what? They need somewhere to live too. Many immigrants end up living in overcrowded or substandard housing because they can't afford anything else. So, while it's tempting to point the finger at immigration as the big bad wolf in our housing fairy tale, the reality is far more nuanced. We need to build more homes, period. And not just any homes, affordable homes that ordinary folks can actually afford to live in, but building houses is like trying to herd cats. Everyone agrees it needs to be done, but no one wants to do the dirty work. Developers would rather build luxury flats that sit empty half the year because, let's face it, there's more money to be made that way. And the government? Well, they're like a dog chasing its tail, all talk and no trousers. One minute they're promising to build hundreds of thousands of new homes, the next they're wringing their hands and blaming planning regulations. It's enough to make you want to tear your hair out. But don't despair, because in the next part of our housing saga, we'll explore the current state of the market and see if there's any light at the end of this very long, very expensive tunnel. Right then, where were we? Ah, yes, staring down the barrel of this housing crisis like a bulldog facing a plate of Brussels sprouts. It's enough to make you want to pack it all in and live in a shed, but even garden sheds are going for a king's ransom these days. So who are the poor souls feeling the pinch the most? Well, look no further than our younger generation, bless their souls. They're stuck in a perpetual state of generation rent, destined to line the pockets of landlords rather than build up any equity of their own. It's enough to make you weep into your cuppa, seeing these bright young things stuck in a seemingly endless cycle of renting. They're shelling out a small fortune each month just to keep a roof over their heads, leaving precious little left over for things like, food, bills and the occasional cheeky Nando's. Saving for a deposit? Don't even get me started. That's about as likely as finding a tenner tucked away in your winter coat. And what happens when their rent gets hiked up again, or their landlord decides to sell up? It's enough to send shivers down your spine. They're left at the mercy of a rental market that's about as forgiving as a hungry Rottweiler guarding a bone. Section 2. The Bank of Mum and Dad. A national treasure or a national disgrace? Now, some of these young whippersnappers are lucky enough to have what we call the Bank of Mum and Dad to fall back on. Yes, those generous souls, Mum and Dad, are digging deep into their own pockets to help their little chicks fly the coop. They're handing over hard-earned savings, remortgaging their homes, and even dipping into their pension pots just to give their offspring a fighting chance in this cutthroat property market. It's enough to warm the cockles of your heart, isn't it? But hold on a minute, because it also highlights the sheer inequality of it all. Not everyone has a Bank of Mum and Dad to rely on. Some folks are left to fend for themselves, battling it out in a market that's stacked against them. It's like trying to win a game of darts with a feather duster. You might get lucky, but the odds are definitely not in your favour. And what about those who do receive help from their families? It creates a whole new set of pressures and expectations. Suddenly they're not just responsible for their own financial future, but they're carrying the weight of their parents' sacrifices on their shoulders too. It's enough to make you want to reach for the biscuits, isn't it? Section 1. The Housing Lottery. Winners and losers in the game of homes. So, here we are, stuck in the middle of this housing kerfuffle with no easy way out. It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack, blindfolded, wearing oven mitts. The housing market has become a giant game of chance, a lottery where the odds are stacked firmly against those who weren't born with a silver spoon in their mouths. On the one hand, you've got the winners, the landlords raking it in, the property developers laughing all the way to the bank, and the lucky few who managed to buy their homes back in the good old days when houses cost less than a used car. They're sitting pretty, their investments growing faster than a prize-winning marrow at a village fete. But on the other hand, you've got the losers, the young families priced out of the market, the essential workers struggling to make ends meet, and the vulnerable individuals and families stuck on council waiting lists longer than the queue for a Greggs sausage roll on a cold Tuesday morning. They're the ones feeling the squeeze, the ones who are left wondering if they'll ever have a place to call their own. Section 2, building our way out, or just building castles in the clouds. The government, bless their souls, keeps talking about building more homes. They trot out the same old promises like a dog digging up its favourite bone affordable housing. First-time buyer schemes, 1 million new homes by. But are they just blowing hot air? Are they building castles in the clouds while the rest of us are left scrabbling for scraps? Some folks reckon the answer lies in building more council houses. Remember those? Back in the day, they were the backbone of affordable housing, providing decent, secure homes for working families. But somewhere along the line, we got it into our heads that council housing was a bad thing, a symbol of poverty and failure. Well, it's time to challenge that perception, isn't it? We need to build more council houses, and not just those pokey little flats they knock up on the cheap. We're talking spacious, well-designed homes that families can be proud to live in. Homes that are affordable, secure and built to last. Homes that give people a chance to put down roots and build a better future. Section 1, the future of home, a crystal ball or a cloudy forecast. So there you have it, my friends. The UK housing crisis in a nutshell, a right royal mess of soaring prices, dwindling supply, and a whole lot of head-scratching. But what does the future hold? Will we all end up living in pods, stacked on top of each other like tins of beans in a supermarket aisle? Or will we find a way out of this quagmire and build a brighter future, where everyone has a place to call home? Now, I'm no mystic Meg, but I reckon it could go either way. If we keep on as we are, with the government dragging its feet and developers building castles in the sky, then things are only going to get worse. We'll see more and more people priced out of the market, forced to choose between heating and eating, or worse, ending up on the streets. But there's another way, a brighter path we could choose. A path where we put people before profit, where we build homes for living in, not for making money off of. A path where we invest in our communities, create jobs, and give everyone a fair shot at a decent life. Section 2. From crisis to opportunity, time to get building. The thing is, this housing crisis isn't just a problem, it's an opportunity. An opportunity to rethink the way we live, the way we build, and the kind of society we want to create. We could build more sustainable homes using eco-friendly materials and renewable energy. We could create communities where people can walk, cycle, and actually know their neighbours. We could build a future where everyone has a place to call home, a place where they can truly belong. But it's not going to happen on its own, is it? It's going to take a collective effort, a groundswell of demand from ordinary people like you and me. We need to tell our politicians that enough is enough, that we won't stand for a system that prioritises profit over people. We need to demand better, build better, and create a future where everyone has a roof over their head and a chance to thrive. We need to channel our inner Winston Churchill, roll up our sleeves and get building. Not just houses, but a fairer, more just society, where everyone has the opportunity to achieve their dreams, not just dream of achieving them. Section 3. Home Sweet Home, a dream worth fighting for. Because at the end of the day, home is more than just bricks and mortar, isn't it? It's a feeling, a sense of belonging, a place where we can truly be ourselves. It's the foundation upon which we build our lives, our families, our futures. And everyone deserves a solid foundation, a place to call their own. So, let's not give up on the dream of home, my friends. Let's keep fighting for it, demanding it, building it brick by brick, hope by hope. Because a home is more than just a place to live. It's a fundamental human right, and it's a right worth fighting for. Let's not forget the Joneses, eh? Remember them, our typical British family stuck in the housing quagmire. Let's make sure their story has a happy ending and that future generations won't have to face the same struggles. Let's build a Britain where everyone can afford a decent gaff, put the kettle on and say, "Home sweet home."